السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أجمعين. Shall we begin where we had left off? بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أجمعين. Okay, so inshallah we are back with verse number 22 for Tafsir Surah Ra'd, Serene Thunder. And Jazakallah khair to all of you who are here, even though it is supposed to be winter break. But alhamdulillah, this is a great way to break and sit with the Book of Allah. So we had gotten up to verse number 22. So inshallah, we'll begin with that, with the word to word first. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وَالَّذِينَ, and those, صَبَرُوا, from sabara, which means that he was patient. So sabaru is they were patient. Okay, so those who were patient, ibtigha'a, seeking. Okay, so they were patient out of seeking wajhi, the face, rabbihim, their Lord. Wa aqamu, and they established as-salah, the prayer. Wa, and anfaqu, from nafaqa, which means he spent, anfaqu, they spent. Mimma, which we've said many times before, it's made up of two words, min, from, ma, that which, razaqnahum, we have provided to them, sirran, secretly, wa, and alaniyatan, openly, wa yadra'una, and they repel, bilhasana, with good, as-sayyi'a, the evil, ulaika, those, lahum, for them, uqaba dar, the final home is one way to understand it. There are various ways you can translate that, and we'll look at the flowing translation now for verse 22. And those who are patient, seeking the countenance of their Lord, and establish prayer, and spend from what we have provided for them secretly and publicly, and prevent evil with good, those will have the good consequence of this home. Okay, so in this verse, we have the sifat, the characteristics of those that will enter Jannat al-Aden, the gardens of eternity. And they're the ones who are patient while they seek the face of their Lord. And they establish the prayer. And they spend out of what we have provided for them, secretly and publicly. And prevent evil with good. Those will have the good consequence of this home. So that's one interpretation. They'll have the good consequence of this world, and its good consequence, of course, is paradise. And others have translated this as for them will be the final abode, referring to the hereafter, to the home of the akhirah in paradise. So people who are patient, not just because, I think we had mentioned this last week, not just because they have no other recourse, but they are actively patient and practicing patience. What do we mean actively patient? They're practicing patience actively or mindfully, mindful of the fact that they want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by practicing that restraint, which is patience. And again, patience is required in fulfilling the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So right after the verse mentions those who are patient, seeking the face of their Lord, the acts of mandatory acts of ibadah, worship that Allah has mandated are also mentioned, right? And they establish the prayer and they spend out of that which we have given them secretly and openly. So here, these people, part of patience is to not show irritation, is to not show anger in fulfilling that which is obligatory upon you. And all of us fall short, even as we fulfill the obligatory commands. Sometimes we are not doing so in the best spirit or exuding the best goodwill or loving willingness while fulfilling those actions. Of course, we still must do them, but there's a higher reward, of course, for those who do so lovingly and not grudgingly. And that's how the darajat actually increase. If you're interested in a promotion in paradise, it's the same action, but it's with how much love you do it, with how much longing you do it. by looking at it, whatever it is, whether it's salah or being kind to your parents, whether it is giving your zakat, fasting on Ramadan, or treating your guest well that you really didn't want in your house for whatever reason. You may be tired or not expecting them or whatever it is. Restraining ourselves from saying that word that we really want to say. One of the greatest ways of being patient is by controlling our tongue, controlling our desires. You want to say something back, you have the perfect answer, you are the one who's right, but to give up that argument, to give up having the last word, especially someone who is older than you. Parents, of course, no question, they have the greatest right of the best treatment from us. Our spouses who take care of us, and all people that have a right to our good conduct. It's not possible to have good akhlaq without sabr. And this is why good akhlaq is the heaviest thing on the mizan, because it requires the most difficult practice, which is the practice of sabr. Without sabr, there can be no good akhlaq. You may be doing all the right things, but in the wrong way, and that takes away from the reward. So therefore, being patient is not passive at all in Islam. Patience is a very active, it's a very mindful, enhancing darajat, increase state of mind, state of behavior, state of interaction. Okay. Although he mentions about those who are patient, he explains this by saying that this refers to those that remain self-possessed, keep control of all their desires and lusts, not transgress the bounds. Who do not transgress the bounds, and they do not yield to temptations to disobey their Lord in order to gain advantage and gratify their desires. They bear with calm courage and endurance losses and afflictions that are inevitable in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we consider the life of a believer from this point of view, we shall find that his entire life is the life of endurance and fortitude. He or she keeps himself under control in very trying circumstances in this world, in the hope of winning the approval of his or her Lord, and in the expectation of gaining permanent benefits in the hereafter. So he or she fights with fortitude every temptation to sin, anything that would take away from that maqam for the sabirin, that station for the patient ones that only they will have. And of course, they establish the prayer and they spend from which we have given them secretly and openly, and a very special, extra, super special trait of this category of people that will inherit the eternal gardens is mentioned. And what is that? And you don't have this a lot in the Quran, okay? You always have establishing the prayer, you always have giving the zakah, but this one is not mentioned very often in the Quran. It doesn't come every time salah and zakah are mentioned, but it's a very, very special and empowering characteristics, which takes you from this level to an entirely different level of existence, interaction, and therefore ranks in the hereafter. And what is that? يَدْرَؤُونَ بِالْحَسَنَةِ السَّيِّئَةِ. They repel with good that which is evil. Okay, what does that mean? Again, this additional quality that you don't always have mentioned with the usual virtues of prayer and fasting, which means it demands extra attention from us, that we pay extra attention to and give it extra importance and really try extra hard to inculcate this in us for that enhanced maqam in paradise. And it's like when someone mistreats you, you respond with goodness rather than with the same meanness. You give to the one who deprives you. You forgive the one who was unjust to you. Someone says a mean word to you, you respond with goodness. Someone says something evil to you, you try to make a dua for them in their face. And it's very disarming for the other person, right? It's highly quelling of any tension that the other party is trying to build, or the fight or argument they're trying to perpetuate. It's very disarming. So we should try to become experts at this in order to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Sheikh Saadi mentions that if this is the way this group of people Allah is praising here treat those that mistreat them. Imagine how they treat the ones that are good to them. Imagine how they would treat their parents, their spouses, their children. And sometimes, our spouses and children, of course, mistreat us, and as do other families and family members and friends, community members, etc. Well, that's what this verse is for. It's giving, so the Quran doesn't leave us alone in the face of all the difficulties we, have in our lives. Rather, it prescribes winning formulas to come out victorious in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if you might look like a loser or a doormat or someone who, is able to stand up for themselves. We should not be misled away from the guidance of the Quran because of the power or the validation associated with these labels that society has come up with, right? We should not think in those terms or use those terms for others, nor let ourselves become mentally labeled by them. Don't accept anyone's label of you if you're upholding the Quranic directive for a higher place in paradise, inshallah. Then who cares if someone calls you a doormat? It doesn't make that description valid. If you have pleased your Lord, then that is what you want to pursue, inshallah, with passion and without getting disheartened at all. So, there are going to be people that make mistakes, and those mistakes sometimes will be made against us, right? People will be unjust to us. People are going to be unfair to us, knowingly or unwittingly. Human beings are not perfect. But subhanAllah, people, when you treat them with ihsan, when you treat them with big-heartedness, you're helping them become a better person. You obviously are, because you're on the higher moral ground. You're operating from a whole different realm of, morality, which is, a formula for success in the akhirah, but you're also helping other people become better because you're taking away all reasons for them to be belligerent and to be mean and to be argumentative. And subhanAllah, this keeps reminding me while I'm explaining this and talking about this, keeps reminding me of the way Yusuf alayhi salam dealt with his brothers. A beautiful surah in Tafsir, Dreams Come True, that we just finished. We all saw how Yusuf alayhi salam spoke to his brothers when they all came at the end with their father Yaqub alayhi salam, and the way he talks to them. And alhamdulillah, that all praise to the one who brought all of you to me after shaitan had caused that strife between us. Like, alhamdulillah, who brought me out of prison. He didn't say he brought me out of the well, because that would obviously directly implicate them. And one of the things we had mentioned about how Yusuf alayhi salam, subhanAllah, is so noble, Kareem ibn al-Kareem, right? The noble one, the son of the noble one, and so on, as the Prophet praised him in the hadith. The way he spoke to people, the way he dealt with his brothers, the way he treated his brothers, didn't disclose his identity until he had gotten to a certain point with them in order to rectify their hal, in order to rectify their condition, in order to induce self-awareness and self-realization and internally arising regret and introspection within the brothers, which doesn't happen if you blame and condemn, because that causes the person to become defensive, even if they're wrong. So blaming, condemning, calling someone out, that does not give us the results that we want, the response we want to see from people. That just makes them defensive, and therefore makes it harder for them to rectify their wrong, to correct whatever mistake you are trying to address. And what you're doing is engaging in self-sabotage, because you are obviously pained or injured or bothered or irritated by whatever wrong behavior the other party is engaging in. But the way you're going about addressing it is taking them farther from being able to rectify themselves, right? By putting them on the defensive. So this verse, what it's saying, that they repel good with evil, is that you repel their evil, their mistreatment, their mean words, their anger. You answer or respond so tactfully with goodness, with khair, with dua, with love, with forgiveness, that they're just like forced to stop in their tracks and consider another way, right? So you're actually helping them become better. Obviously, you're already becoming better and better, inshallah, in the sight of Allah by practicing this Quranic verse and improving the condition of the others. And overall, you enjoy the fruits of a beautiful environment, a beautiful interaction, a beautiful relationship with this person, right? There's another verse that I'm going to, I think I have with regards to this, that'll explain this even more. So for these people, subhanAllah, is uqbad, right? Ulaika lahum uqbad. So the word mentioned here is distinct, right? For these people who have these distinct qualities, especially yadra'una bil hasanati sayyi'ah, repelling the evil with repelling with good, but that which is evil, which is really hard to do. So if you want the ultimate reward, right, the uqbad, the ultimate reward in the akhirah, the Jannah, then you have to stretch ultimately, right? You have to stretch yourself, stretch your potential, stretch your forbearance, stretch your steadfastness and your tolerance in the face of difficult people, in the face of challenges. That he mentions how if others do evil to them, they do not do evil in return, but do good instead. They do not fight mischief with mischief, but with virtue. Howsoever unjust one may be to them, they do justice in every case. Likewise, they remain truthful and honest, even in the case of those who tell lies against them and show dishonesty towards them. Okay, and now actually this is the verse from Surah Fussilat, which is completely related to this that I wanted to share. وَلَا تَسْتَوِ الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ. The good and the evil are not alike. إِدْفَعْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Repel with that which is better. فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ. So then what's going to happen is that the one between you and him, there was enmity, كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ, as if he was a very close, extremely close friend. A transformation is going to occur if you're just able to keep, repelling, responding with what is better. But it's very hard, right? The Quran, admits this, testifies to this. وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا. But not able to achieve this except those that are patient. Yani, you're not, generally you can't reach to this. It is only the patient. It is but the patient who are able to attain this. So مَا يُلَقَّى is actually negation, that do not reach it except those that are patient. So again, that quality of patience, what we started out with in this verse 22 of Surah Ar-Ra'd, is the same characteristic that is being highlighted here in Fussilat, verse 35, as the requirement for being able to bring about something that is so revolutionary, so transformative, that a person goes from having an individual who was their enemy, who showed enmity, to becoming not just neutralized, not just like a neutral party that you start getting, along with, but someone who is a close bosom, a close friend. Sometimes we translate it as a close bosom, like a close, close to your heart friend, subhanAllah. But cannot attain this except for those who are patient, وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا, and do not attain this, except ذُو حَظٍّ عَظِيمٍ, except the one who has a great fortune, someone who has a great share, someone who's extremely fortunate, right? SubhanAllah, someone of great character, who is of course going to have a great share in the akhirah, that uqbad, right? So let's make this our New Year resolution. I don't know if we do New Year's resolutions or not, but it is coming up in a few days, and I know we all think about it, and some of us do our New Year's resolutions in Ramadan. But anyhow, Muslim mu'min is always supposed to be introspective. Whatever excuse we can use any time of the year to be an excuse for introspection. We should engage in anyway. So let's try to make this a habit that we try to perfect until Ramadan. And so let's take it as a challenge for all of us here listening today and pass it on to your family and friends next time at the next gathering. Probably seeing people this winter break. Make this a challenge that we all engage in together as a family, as a community, to idfa' billati ahsan, to repel that which is evil with good. يَدْرَؤُونَ بِالْحَسَنَةِ السَّيِّئَةَ, to repel that with goodness, that which is evil. Just like, let's make this a challenge until Ramadan. And I would love to hear stories from you, inshallah, after you've practiced this for a few months on reflection sessions. And let's just, see how it goes. So inshallah, that's the challenge of the next 3 months until Ramadan, inshallah, which is May 13th. So we have, just under 3 months actually to do this. Okay, and now let's go to verse 23. Jannatu adn now is the reward for the people who embody the characteristics we just explained in verse 22. What are they going to get? Jannatu adn. Jannat, gardens, adn, eternal or perpetual. Yadkhulunaha, they will enter it. Wa, and man, whoever, salaha, was rectified or righteous. Min, from abaihim, their fathers, and this includes mothers as well, obviously. Wa azwajihim, and their spouses. Wa dhurriyatihim, and their children. Wal malaikatu, and the angels. Yadkhuluna, shall enter alayhim, upon them. Min, from kulli, each bab, door. Gardens of perpetual residence. They will enter them with whoever were righteous among their fathers, and mothers, their spouses, and their descendants, and the angels will enter upon them from every gate. This is a beautiful celebratory verse of the treatment of the people who make it to Jannah by Allah's grace. For these people who have the beautiful characteristics of verse 23, for these beautiful people are beautiful gardens of eternity that they will be in all together with their ascendants and descendants, as well as their spouses, right? Because of the way Allah has created us, our happiness is not complete until we share it with those that we love. Until they are present, something is missing, right? As the saying goes for dunya, right? With others, joys when shared are doubled, and sorrows when shared with others are halved, right? So in Jannah, where there is only happiness and delight, Allah's favor and completion of that blessing is that He will actually bring up, join together all of our family members, from our forefathers, from our grandchildren, from our spouses, children, grandchildren, all of these are included, right? And the angels will be eagerly entering upon them from every door, subhanAllah. And Allah knows how many doors there are of paradise. We cannot imagine how many doors there are of paradise, right? But the fact that the angels are entering in through every door, it conveys their sense of eagerness. It conveys their desire to honor the believers, to rush and to greet them at every entrance of their dwellings of eternity. And Ibn Kathir mentions how Adn, again, indicates, like we said, continual residence, perpetual residence, right? And that's what makes paradise so beautiful. If you were told you can have paradise for a day, a week, a year, there's always that lingering feeling of, but then it will be over, right? It is something that, lingers even at the beginning of every vacation or the middle of it, every holiday break, every meeting is, there's a lingering, sense that there will be a farewell. But this is one place, because it is perfect, its blessings are perfect, and part of that is their perpetual nature of everlastingness. And Ibn Kathir adds how Allah will gather them with their loved ones from among their fathers, obviously mothers are included, family members and offspring, those who are righteous and deserve to enter paradise by Allah's permission, so that their eyes are comforted by seeing them. And this is the part we all love to hear. He will also elevate the grade of those who are lower to the grades of those who are higher. a favor from him out of his kindness without decreasing the grade of those who were higher up. And another ayah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Surah 52, verse 21, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَاتَّبَعَتْهُمْ ذُرِّيَّتُهُمْ بِإِيمَانٍ أَلْحَقْنَاهُمْ بِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ, right? And those who believe and whose offspring follow them in faith, to them shall we join their offspring, right? So there is, there are verses that clearly state that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will join us together with our children, with our spouses, with our forefathers, out of takreem, out of honoring, the people, of course, that were in the higher ranks. Their happiness will be completed by having any one of their family members who were righteous, but in a lower rank than them, to promote them up. They will receive an upgrade. And subhanAllah, all will be happy all together, right? Okay, let's look at verse number 24. Verse 24, Salamun, peace alaykum upon you, bima, be, because ma, that, sabartum, you were patient, fa, so ni'ma, best or excellent, uqbadar, final home. Verse 24, peace and security be upon you for what you patiently endured, and excellent is the final home, subhanAllah. So when you see the angels entering upon them from every door, they're entering with greetings of peace. They're making this haste, or there's a sense of eagerness. Angels coming in, Allah knows in what numbers, to give Ahlul Jannah salam, to give them greetings of peace, this wonderful angelic attention and eagerness because of the patience that these people showed. Bima sabartum, salamun alaykum bima sabartum. So the salam is associated directly with the sabr that these people exhibited in dunya. And Mawdudi rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions that two things are implied with this description. Firstly, the angel will come in large numbers from every side and give them this good news, that now you have come to a place where there is salam. It's all peace for you. You are immune from every type of affliction, every type of trouble and hardship. There's no danger, there's no worry. So how excellent is the ultimate abode. So, it is so worth being patient for. I don't mean patient and waiting for it. I mean actively practicing patience in our lives in order to get paradise. And every one of us has a different test that they know requires patience, that they may be struggling with. Sometimes we talked about how much reward there is in being patient with other people and repelling their evil with goodness. And of course, that requires immense patience, and it's a work in progress for most of us. And then there's patience against sin, which we've also talked about in various parts of our Tafsir. And then there is patience against one's own self, against one's own desires. And, that's the kind of patience that is completely internal sometimes. No one is privy to it, to your struggle, right? It may be a desire for sleep, a desire for food, a desire for rest, whatever it is that, is compromising you or your potential. And every single one of us knows what that is for them. To be patient against that, it's very, very difficult, right? But Jannah will be so worth it all, right? It is so much more than we can ever anticipate. So yes, there is difficulty associated with patience. Sometimes, there is sorrow even associated with having to be patient, and there's a bitterness that comes with patience, right? But all of that will dissipate once the person sees the magnificence of what awaits them. Bima sabartum, because of their patience. And again, it is mentioned in the Tafsir how the angel will enter on them from every direction, congratulating them for entering paradise. Imagine, subhanAllah, when you complete any type of degree, when you buy a home, when you have a baby, you receive congratulations, and it's something that you expect, and it's something that increases your joy over that blessing, right? Imagine receiving congratulations for having made it into Jannah. And who is congratulating you? It is the angels of the Most Merciful. SubhanAllah, yani that is going to be, unbelievable and so worth it. The angels will come with the Islamic greeting and commend them for earning Allah's closeness and rewards, as well as being admitted into the dwelling of peace, neighbors to the honorable messengers, والسلام, the prophets and the truthful believers. And there's a narration that Imam Ahmad records from the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, where he asked people, هل تدرؤون أول من يدخل الجنة من خلق الله? Do you know who among Allah's creation will enter paradise first? And they said, Allah wa Rasuluhu, didn't have more knowledge. So he said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, أول من يدخل الجنة من خلق الله الفقراء المهاجرون الذين تسد بهم الثغور وتتقى بهم المكاره ويموت أحدهم وحاجته في صدره لا يستطيع لها قضاء. SubhanAllah, it's so beautiful. For the sake of time, I'll translate that and say the remainder in English. The first among Allah's creation to enter paradise are the poor muhajirin in Allah's cause, with whom the outposts of the land are secured and the various afflictions are warded off. One of them would die while his need is still in his chest because he was unable to satisfy it himself. Allah will say to whom He wills among His angels, go to them and welcome them with the salam. The angels will say, we are the residents of your heaven and the best of your creation. Do you command us to go to them and welcome them with salam? Allah will say, they are my servants who worship me and did not associate anyone or anything with me in worship. With them, the outposts were secured and the afflictions were warded off. One of them would die while his need is in his chest, unable to satisfy it. So the angels will go to them from every gate of paradise, saying, Salamun alaykum bima sabartum, peace be upon you because of your patience. SubhanAllah. This reminds me when I read this narration of the people of Palestine, SubhanAllah, who are beyond poverty at this moment, right? When some of them are struggling to find even a morsel of food. And how this verse, this narration mentions, يَمُوتُ أَحَدُهُمْ وَحَاجَتُهُ فِي صَدْرِهِ لَا يَسْتَطِيعُ لَهَا قَضَاءً. That one of them dies and his need, his desire, his want, his need is still in his chest. He was unable to fulfill it. SubhanAllah. And Allah has so much appreciation and holds these people in such high value that they're the first to enter paradise, and He will fulfill much more than their needs. SubhanAllah. They're going to receive greetings of peace on account of their patience, and angels will enter upon them from every door of paradise, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be pleased with them. SubhanAllah. And now, finally, verse 25, the opposite of the people that we have just described. وَالَّذِينَ, and those يَنْقُضُونَ, who break عهد Allah, the covenant, Allah's covenant, min, after, ba'di, after. Min is from, but min ba'di means after. Mithaqihi, it was solemnized or ratified or made binding. وَيَقْطَعُونَ, and they break ma, that which, or sever, that ma, that. So يَقْطَعُونَ is to break or to sever. Ma, that which. Amar Allah, Amara, commanded Allah. Allah commanded bihi, with it. Yani Allah commanded with it, with regards to it. Ayn yusala, that yusala, it be joined, that it be maintained. وَيُفْسِدُونَ, and they spread corruption, fi, in al-ard, the earth, أولئك, those, لهم, for them, اللعنة, the curse, and لهم, for them, سوء, evil, الدار, the worst abode. Okay, so verse 25. But those who break the covenant of Allah after contracting it, yani making it binding after it had become binding, and sever that which Allah has ordered to be joined, and spread corruption on earth, for them is the curse, and they will have the worst home, the worst abode. Okay, so here now we have the opposite blameworthy qualities being mentioned, so that again we may be warned against adopting any of them, and also patient the stark contrast between the two, right? So number one, those who break Allah's covenant, who break the covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after it was solemnized, after it had been made binding. And we know this is from the qualities of a hypocrite. The hadith that you all know of in Sahih Muslim, Ayatul Munafiq ثلاث. The signs of a hypocrite are three. إذا حدث كذب, وإذا وعد أخلف, وإذا اؤتمن خان. Whenever he speaks, the signs of a hypocrite are three. Whenever he speaks, he tells a lie. Whenever he promises, he always breaks it. If you entrust him, he proves to be dishonest. So these are the characteristics of a hypocrite. And it's so sad and scary to see so many of these in Muslims, and part of what is known about many Muslim countries, from their level of dishonesty and corruption and lack of integrity and reliability. But these are actually the signs of a hypocrite. And this is the first of the characteristics that are mentioned about the people that Allah holds blameworthy. They break their covenant with Allah after it was made binding upon them, and they sever that which Allah has ordered to be joined. Okay, blood relations, maintaining whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mandated be maintained, be upheld, they cut it off. وَيُفْسِدُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ, and they cause corruption in the land. Shaykh Sa'di mentions in his tafsir of this ayah, فَلَمْ يَصِلُوا مَا بَيْنَهُمْ وَبَيْنَ رَبِّهِمْ بِالْإِيمَانِ وَالْعَمَلِ الصَّالِحِ. So he explains that cutting off that which Allah has commanded be maintained or tied. So yes, we understand these to be the relations of the wombs, the blood relations, the family. But also, Sa'di mentions that they also don't connect or join that which is between them and their Lord, yani that which is binding upon them to be maintained and upheld in terms of Iman and Allah, and then doing righteous actions on account of that Iman. وَلَا وَصَلُوا الْأَرْحَامِ وَلَا أَدُّوا الْحُقُوقِ, and then also, of course, upholding the ties of the womb and fulfilling fulfilling the huquq, the rights of the creation, the rights of those individuals, the family, the relatives. But أَفْسَدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, rather what they did instead was cause corruption in the earth, which is the third characteristic mentioned in this ayah. And how did they do this? بِالْكُفْرِ, first of all with their lack of iman, their disbelief, their kufr, وَالْمَعَاصِي, and with their sinfulness. وَصَدَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَإِبْتِغَائِهَا عِوَجًا, and by their blocking from Allah's path and seeking to make it crooked. So this propaganda that we see, turning the truth into lies, painting pictures other than what is real. All this is part of the fasad, taking anything away from its asl, from its truth, from its real nature. All that is fasad. So obviously, أولئك لهم اللعنة, upon these people, such people are cursed, or upon them, for them is the curse and the worst of abodes. And when someone has the curse of Allah upon them, or they are cursed, what does that mean in the Quran? What does that mean in Islam? Shaykh Sa'di explains, البعد وذم من الله وملائكته وعباده المؤمنين. So cursed in the sense that they are distanced from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his angels and his righteous believing slaves. And it's also condemnation or being condemned by Allah and the angels and the righteous. And for them, السوء الدار, the worst of abodes, of course, the jahim بما فيها من العذاب الأليم. Yani the worst abode is, of course, the fire of hell that has the most painful punishment in it. So obviously, what else can be expected for a set of traits and behaviors that are the opposite, that are the reverse of the ones who are in the abodes of excellence? So it makes sense that their ultimate destinations would be at complete odds, just as their behaviors and beliefs were at complete odds in this abode of test. And one of the things the conflict in Gaza and Palestine has opened our eyes to is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created al-Jahim, as well as created the fire of hell, of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives respite to the oppressor, to the aggressor, to the occupier, according to his wisdom, in order to test the people and purify them and make them enter his Jannat as shuhada, where the angels, inshallah, will come to them from every bab, every door, and complete all those hajat and desires that were left unfulfilled in this world, how they will not be forsaken there if they had been forsaken here. And those who think they're getting away with it can only do so maximally up till their last breath. But after that, there is going to be something that they cannot imagine waiting for them. So really, the conflict in Gaza has helped us understand the Quran better, has helped us understand the creation of the fire of hell and its wisdom and its necessity better than ever before. Subhanallah. Okay, and let's look at verse number 26. Allahu yabsutu, Allah expands a rizq, the provision, li, for man, whomsoever, yasha, he wills, wa yaqdir, and restricts or constrains the provision for whomever he wills, wa farihu, and they have become jubilant or overly exultant, overly happy, bil hayat ad-dunya, with the life of this world, wa mal hayat ad-dunya, and what is the life of this world, fil akhirah, in the akhirah, yani as compared to the akhirah, illa mata', except a short, temporary little enjoyment. Verse 26, Allah extends provision for whom He wills and restricts yani the provision for whomever He wills. And they rejoice in the worldly life, while the worldly life is not compared to the hereafter, except a brief enjoyment. SubhanAllah. Beautiful verse, really important to make sense of what is going on in these extremely sorrowful times for us as an ummah. Allah controls all rizq. He expands it and contracts it for whomever He wills according to His wisdom. And some people are become so elated at how much it is expanded for them in this dunya. So here in this verse, we're reminded about the temporary nature of it all, right? Maudud rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions how this verse refutes the wrong criteria by which the disbelievers Mecca and all the people, disobedient people of the world, judged whether one was or was not a favorite of God. They judged a man's worth by his wealth and worldly prosperity, and not by his faith and righteous conduct. They thought that the one who was enjoying all the good things of life was a favorite of God, even if they had erroneous beliefs and did wicked deeds. On the other hand, they considered the one who was poor to be under God's wrath, even though he was righteous. That is why in their judgment, the chiefs of the Quraysh were far superior to the followers of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They would say, you can see for yourselves that God is with the chiefs of the Quraysh because of they had more worldly blessings. So in this verse here that we're looking at right now, Allah has warned them that they are absolutely wrong in drawing such a conclusion from the worldly conditions of the people. Allah gives His provision to the people abundantly or sparingly for reasons different from those which they presumed. and richness and poverty are no criteria by which to judge the worth of people. The real criteria of judging the worth of people is their iman and their amal, their belief, their faith, and their deeds. The one who has righteous deeds and does good deeds shall be higher in rank than the one who has wrong beliefs and does evil deeds. Thus, the real criteria is the quality of his deeds and not the possession or lack of wealth. So, subhanAllah, in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts dunya in the context of the hereafter. And that's the only way the tragedies and trials of this world make sense. Poverty and hardship and sorrow, even evil, does not make sense unless you believe in an akhirah, in a day of judgment, in the abode for the good and the ultimate destiny of the evil, right? And the narration from Sahih Muslim, which we all know, but I love to remind myself of it. ما الدنيا في الآخرة إلا كما يجعل أحدكم إصبعه هذه في اليم فلينظر بما ترجع. The life of the present world compared to the hereafter is just like when one of you inserts his finger in the sea. So let him contemplate how much of it will it carry. SubhanAllah, there's no comparison, there's no quantification, SubhanAllah, of what the next world is compared to this one. The insignificance of this cannot be overemphasized compared to the indescribable expansiveness of the akhirah. So the only way one can properly treat dunya and go through it according to what it deserves is if we keep this comparison in mind that the verse calls our attention to, that what is the life of this world compared to the hereafter except a little temporary enjoyment. It's like that rest area you stop at before going to your final destination. It's that hotel you check into before coming back home. That's what it is, right? Imagine you start buying furniture for that hotel room and changing the decor and, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on that room and that bathroom that you have for 24 hours. Who would consider that a sensible act? Who would consider that a good use of your time and energy and resources? Everyone would consider you, severely lacking in intelligence and foresight, right? So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us exactly what this life is in compared to the next. Just like this hadith here tells us, it is nothing but your finger being put into the sea, and how much do you come out with it, right? So we're going to stop here. There was one more point I wanted to make about this verse, but I wouldn't be able to convey it without rushing, so I don't want to rush. So we'll continue with the last point regarding verse 26, and inshallah, we're going to stop here for today. We'll resume with 26 next time. Jazakallah khair for coming and attending. For some reason, I'm having trouble seeing all of you here, but alhamdulillah, you're here. So Jazakallah khairan, and inshallah we will see you next time. Subhanaka wa bihamdika la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.